Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Red Path. It is Dara and Jamie here with you again today, and in this video, we are going to be talking about our initial impressions of 10th edition. It's going to be coming up next, so stay tuned. All right, folks, welcome back to the video. I'm here with Jamie again today, and we are going to be talking a little bit about what we're kind of thinking about 10th edition. Now, I think it's fair to say that 10th edition, by and large, especially in the competitive scene, has been somewhat negatively received currently, as at time of filming, there has been no balance patch, and I think being very generous with my words here, the game is not in the nicest of places for a competitive setting. Is that fair, Jamie?
I think what's happened here is Games Workshop has put the Titanic keyword on itself and hit an iceberg. It's kind of, yeah, it's a hot mess. Um, a lot of folks who certainly know a lot more about the game than me and have played it for a lot longer have been very vocal and giving their thoughts. Having I've been kind of out of the loop for like the last month or so. I believe it just started raining here. I do want to apologise quickly for any audio issues with myself. I'm just recording on a cell phone, but yeah, 10th has kind of started off rough. There's a lot of changes to the core rules, which are a bit confusing to many of us, as the previous iterations didn't seem to be needing much improvement. Maybe some tweaks and changes, but nothing substantial. Um, there's a lot of balance issues with the points that were dropped. Um, Generally, it's not getting off to a good start. It's just it's a fucking disaster, quite frankly.
Look, man, you said it, not me, but I can't say I disagree. Yeah, I suppose like in the nature of kind of what we do on the Red Path and stuff, and trying to put a positive but at the same time honest spin on things. I think it's important that we acknowledge as well the shortcomings of this launch and how things are kind of shaping up at the minute. Like we don't want to come across as everything being rosy and stuff all the time, because right now I think it's fair to say that like things are pretty rough, and the way that I'm kind of like, I suppose, viewing this, or what it feels like to me, is that we're being handed what's almost like a beta test, and
Mm.
we as the community are the beta testers, which doesn't feel amazing. If they had said it, if they had come out and kind of said like, hey, look, this is sort of like a testing period with these indexes and stuff, and we're kind of trying to get a feel for it, because I think there's a certain point which really frustrates me, and this is sort of a different kind of frustration, but like I just really wish that sometimes they would come out and say that the game is too big for they themselves to manage, in terms of like if they just made a post saying, hey, there's a lot of rules and interactions in the game, we're not going to pick up on all of them, we're hoping that you, the community, can find those interactions that don't necessarily work, because we can't always do all the playtesting and stuff. I think that's entirely fine, recognizing that your workers are mortal and need to finish their day at a reasonable hour, rather than playing 40k endlessly, is like a fair thing to do. So, but they don't. They kind of parse it off as being like, oh, this edition is perfect and things are really, really good and stuff and blah blah blah. And definitely at the start, when the previews started coming out, things did look really, really good. I was like properly on the hype train. It was tight. But then I suppose as we sort of getting an eye of profiles and stuff, the imbalances started to show. And I think the most, there's two things that really bug me. One is the points. The disparity between points indicates that a lot of the books were kind of tested in pods, and that they weren't then tested against each other in between pods, we'll say. So we'll say maybe a pod is like Death Guard, Chaos Space Marines, and World Leaders, and it was never tested against, we'll say, Eldar, Tau, Votan, something like that. And the points were distributed according to those pods, which is kind of like why you see things like the Fire Prism and the Predator costing the same points when they're clearly very different units. And then you have something like the Dark Eldar Ravager, which I don't know if you know this, Jamie. Do you know how many points a Dark Eldar Ravager costs?
And it's under 100, isn't it? Is
It
it
is
95?
95 points.
Yeah,
Yeah, for three
yeah.
Dark Lances, the fly
Yeah.
keyword, an invulnerable save, and other things.
What is the Dark Lance stat line now?
It's a las cannon.
It's, it's still a las cannon.
It's pretty
So,
much still a las cannon, yeah.
so 95 points, you're getting 3 las cannons hitting on threes, I'm assuming.
Hitting on threes with full rerolls for a pain token if you want to put
That
one on.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
figured.
Has the fly
Okay, yeah, that
keyword,
makes
has an invulnerable
perfect
save,
sense. Yeah, of
etc.
course.
etc. So
Yeah.
like stuff like that where I'm like, cool. Like there's no like oops, we missed that. It's like this clearly just hasn't been looked at in the context of other units, right?
Mhm.
So that's one thing that really bugs me. And then the other thing is the inclusion of rules or abilities or scenarios, which very, very clearly were problematic in the past. So the very obvious one that a lot of people are talking about here is indirect and how it functions.
Yeah.
That's one. Expert crafters for Craft World Eldar. We ran that simulation in 8th edition when they had that rule, and we know it's very, very unbalanced, and it's here again. And things like Oath of Moment existing when we know how powerful something like that can be. It's like we've done this before, GW. And the way I kind of said it, I actually said this to Ron when we were talking about the different sort of problems with it is like, you know, in like game companies, right, that you hear about this problem with legacy code where you get these new coders to come in and they can't deal with the coder or the code that's there from the previous people who worked there, and they try and kind of build on top of that. And it sort of feels like GW has gotten a bunch of new rules writers in, and they're looking at the old stuff and they're kind of pulling bits and pieces from that without necessarily knowing the problems that they had in the past, you know. So I think for me, those are broadly the big problems. We could talk about devastating wounds, we could talk about fate dice, we could talk about Ode of Moment and a whole host of other things, but like a lot of really good content creators are already talking about that. A lot of people who play the game at a much higher competitive level and have a better understanding of how these kind of mechanics work. So we're not going to dive too much into that. What we're going to talk about a little bit more now is a little bit more of a positive take on it. So we've created kind of we've pitched the environment of how things are right now. And obviously, if you're a competitive player or someone who's interested in balance, it's kind of a little bit difficult right now to sort of see where you're going to get your enjoyment and fun from the game. And I think that's entirely reasonable. I don't think you should kind of come at people if they say like, hey, I'm not having a lot of fun with this right now because it's not balanced. Like, it's a very, very fair and reasonable take, I think. But how can you have fun with 40k at the minute if you're in a situation where you really want to engage with the hobby, but maybe your main way of engaging with it, which could be like playing tournaments and stuff, it just doesn't seem like a fun thing to do at the minute. So what we're going to do is talk a little bit about that. But first of all, I think it's important to talk about what is right about 10th edition. Like, what can we say is good at the minute that you might be able to take something from? So, like, what do you think about the core rules overall, Jamie? Do you think they're like decent?
Yes. Like harkening back to what I mentioned a few minutes ago, some things needed improved. Terrain has been something for me that through ninth edition was fairly solid. It did need some improvements because there were obviously things like that needed improvement, like charging through like the 1.1 inches away from a wall and things like that. There were a lot of little edge cases which just needed fine tune. Um, some change to how large models interact with the terrain, which it feels like they almost got with the whatever it is that the Defiler has, and so I think the Baby Knights have, where they ignore 4 inches or less for movement and stuff
Yeah,
like
the
that.
crawler rule or whatever that is.
Crawler,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Like these are good changes. That's a good change. It's a positive. It's looking at a problem, identifying it, and thinking of a way to fix it without changing it for everyone else. This big machine on huge spider legs can walk over, more or less a first level ruin, roughly. But then you look at, say, the change to the charge and fight phase or the fight phase, with having to pile in a certain way. It's going to slow it down at first to be completely optimized. Um, it's like I don't know that the fight phase really needed changed.
Yeah, I agree.
It was, we're combat army players. If you're a tower player or even a marine player where you're sort of like doing a little bit of everything, the fight phase couldn't be abused. There were things you could do to get a leg up, but that's what you get for running an army that is 90% fight phase, because you were always struggling versus a shooting army, for instance. So I don't think they needed to change the way the fight phase worked. I think that really hurt us. I see why they did sideways improve it by letting us fight anything because Overwatch got improved. But did Overwatch need improved? I think Overwatch was fine.
Yeah,
It
this
could be
is
terrible if you're going against 6 crisis suits with 3,000 weapons, but you know it's going to be terrible because it's fucking Tau. Like,
yeah.
it didn't change anything. It was once per round. It was fine. You just had to make sure you brought a Rhino or charge from cover or what have you. I don't think those sorts of things need changed. Um, the terrain changes, like towering, or the way models interact with the terrain, like towering, doesn't feel great. I think there could have been a much more elegant solution to that. Um, at the moment, I'm struggling to find reasons for many of the core rules changes. I do like how I like the idea of putting things like devastating wounds, precision, all those keywords attached to weapons or abilities and stuff. That's fine. I don't like that they're so goddamn common. Like
Yeah.
it does feel like okay, every Joe Schmo in the galaxy has got a weapon that does something ridiculous. Like 90% of weapons should just be the data sheet
Weapons. Yeah.
line, a strength,
Like,
an
doesn't
AP,
assault
and a
cannon
dex.
really need devastating wounds? You
Yeah,
know, like you
yeah,
have to. So this is like what my one of my suggestions would be in terms of like looking at ways to sort of make things better. Is look at all these things like do control F devastating wounds in their master document and just look at everything that you've given it to and say, well, does this really need to have that kind of a keyword,
yeah,
to interact in the way that we want it to interact? And like I would be perfectly fine with an awful lot of things just losing those keywords. Like they can
yeah.
feel special by virtue of having the profiles that they have, as you say. Like, and the USRs in this sense, like they are good, but does everything need to have something like that? I don't know. I don't think
The
so.
Jackals need sustained hits. Like it's cool, and I'm thankful for it, but they don't need it. They're not my combat element. They're my thing that's probably tying up units or taking objectives, whilst the meat of my army is doing the work. Now, we already get an ability for it, like one of our blessings. So, arguably, no one in the World Eater's army should have sustained hits. Like, we don't, first of all, now we're paying for it. You could take 5 points off the unit and take away sustained hits. We're not relying on them for combat. It's kind of fucking stupid because I'm already going to probably have to choose it as a blessing when I'm going into my go turn anyway, because I want my berserkers and my 8 bound and avocado and whoever I've got on the field, I want them to explode. So take it away. Like the feel no pain is kind of meany on them, but it's fine.
So strange, but I won't say
Yeah,
no to it either.
right. But the sustained hits, no. I Master of Executions getting precision is fine.
Yeah,
Um,
that's flavorful. I
yeah.
agree with this
And
one. Yeah.
also, I think he gets devastating wounds in melee as well.
He has
Like
always kind of had it though,
yeah,
that's the
a,
thing.
a character, like in a way, really, these special keywords, I think, on characters, quite proliferant, whatever the word I'm trying to think of here. Throw them
Prolific.
on character, throw them on character models quite a lot because they're characters,
Mm.
especially named characters. That's fine. Khorne should have, with Gorechild, it should do some serious stuff. And
Yeah, like
surprisingly, it
anti-infantry
doesn't.
3+ or something,
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a fucking Primarch's weapon doesn't do anything. But, fucking your little Barney mate, his sixes explode just because he's got a
Hell
fucking
yeah.
meat cleaver or whatever.
Yeah.
But characters having that stuff is fine, but no, everyone's got everything apparently, and that's frustrating for me.
It does feel a little bit like I know a lot of people were kind of saying the whole lethality reduction initially, and I don't really see it as a lethality reduction. I see it as a shift in where the lethality actually lies. Because sure, we lost ignoring invuln weapons, but we have gained devastating wounds in a plethora of different places. We lost, broadly speaking, ways of making things hit on twos. But if you have sustained hits across the entire board, it's the same. It's like the same math.
Essentially, yeah.
So like this is my problem. AP might have gone down, but lethal hits is like in a lot of different places as well.
Yeah,
So you can kind of argue it on either side, where it's sort of like it feels to me like GW is very, very scared to make the edition less lethal.
yeah,
And I think they're trying to push it in a way where it looks like it's less lethal. But in reality, and I'm saying this having at time of filming not played any games, but I've spoken to a bunch of my friends who have, and they said that the lethality doesn't feel like it's gone down, you know? And I think broadly speaking that like that's something that will become apparent over time. People will realize like actually hang on a second now, this is still a very, very lethal addition. And this whole concept of like, oh, we're gonna be fighting over these objectives for like 3 battle rounds, it's like that's not gonna happen, you know? Um so I think like I agree with you. There is definitely an element of change for the sake of change, for sure, for sure. I don't agree with a lot of how some things have changed, but at the same time, simple changes like Fly having to count vertical movement now, I'm a big fan of that because to me it was always very very strange how like if something is like flying from the ground up to the top of a building, how it's like, well, only the horizontal part of this matters to me. I don't expend any energy going up. So I'm actually and I know a lot of people initially were like, "Oh, fly is to count movement. That's so bad. That's so annoying." But I'm like, that's really only because we're like conditioned for it ignoring movement because of how we've always played the game before. And I'm kind of like, I really don't mind it actually having to count that aspect of it because, something that flies was so fundamentally powerful, especially in 8th edition. Less so in 9th edition, but was still an incredibly, incredibly powerful thing to have in the game. And now I think we have to look at it like, while we might say, like, oh, our Demon Prince has to count going up and over if he's flying now. But that's still a massive advantage over one on foot who can't do that at all, you know?
Mhm.
So I'm a fan of things like that. And I suppose, one really good thing to dial in on a little bit is that I think it's fair to say that a lot of melee armies in the game are feeling a little bit stung at the minute because just how the edition is set up to be quite preferential towards gunline and shooting armies, which, shocker, it's 40k. It's unfortunately always been that way, and you get punished for playing melee. However, I would say that the World Eaters, as an all melee faction, like Loki, I think are actually quite powerful. Like somehow in this sort of vacuum of like where we're going to be living in 10th edition. I don't know. Do you think that we're also going to be pretty good?
It's tough. I do want to caveat myself. Again, I've not played a 10th edition game, not even on TTS or anything. Um, I feel like maybe not so much. I feel like we're going to be good. I feel like we're gaining an identity. I feel like World Eaters is moving away from another power armored melee faction to fast, hyper aggressive, kind of very elite, but with support. I know that's like really vague,
I
general.
agree with you though. It does feel like
Yeah,
the like outside of custodes, I would say it's the next step down in terms of elite power
yes,
armor.
because
And
I
I'm kind of
feel
here
like
for it, to be honest. Like
yeah,
there's something about it I like.
what I feel like, I don't think necessarily this will be the sort of meta list or anything, but what it looks to me like GW is pushing us towards is a centerpiece character, whether that is Angron or Khorne or Invocatus, but which one you choose is going to guide the way your list functions. And for instance, if you're running Invocatus, well, you're doing an Alpha Rush list. Everybody knows that's what your list is. So if you're running Invocatus, you're going to be investing in 8 bound and exalted 8 bound, potentially Terminators, those kind of things. If you're
Sure,
running,
yeah, sure, definitely. That's
I'm
definitely what
not going
I'm
to
doing.
spoil your list because we don't want to let anyone else break the meta with it yet.
Hmm. That's true.
But you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
If you're
there's like
running,
a build, we'll say.
yes,
Yeah,
there's definitely a build. Um, if you're running Angron, you may be like using him for like the rapid ingress strategy. So you're going to want the rest of your list to be able to survive and maintain ball control until he's ready to drop in, things like that. But it does feel like they're pushing us in this direction of speedy, like turn one, we're staging, and where we've always tried to do that before by using rhinos and whatever else, our just native movement now is pretty much
it's
okay, turn
very very
one, I'm,
fast.
I'm
Yeah,
halfway across the table with half my army.
like we
You're
can be
going to
looking at
kill some of it.
Terminators with a what like
13 inches on turn one.
very very fast. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
The list I wrote just before we got on our Zoom call here has a squad of 10 Terminators in there,
I'm
and it
here for
has
that
a
energy. Like you and
us.
Jack are like big on the Terminators, and like I
Yeah,
am as well. There's something else I want to try first, but the
yeah.
Terminators are definitely like So okay, this is like one thing a little bit tangential, but it's still on topic. But like,
Of course,
so
man, it's
okay,
us.
one thing that like, okay, GW have gotten an awful lot wrong with 10th edition across like all the armies, but oh my god, our internal balance is incredible. Like,
Yeah,
in my opinion, it's like there's like one unit in our entire codex that is not viable, and it's the
Helldrake.
Helldrake. Yeah,
Yeah,
everything else, I'm like, yo, I can put this in a list, and I don't feel like an idiot. And like,
yeah,
it's so cool because it's like you say, there's an identity to everything, right? So like, you have your 8 bound for your super fast rush. Terminators are like tanks too. Like they're so tanky. I actually like low key love that they made the Exalted 8 bound a 5+ in one so that Terminators can like live in that
yes.
vacuum of like
Switch that role kind of
exactly,
around.
yeah. Like the Terminators are like, yes, we are tougher than the Exalted 8 bound. Here for it, and they've got
Hmm.
your firepower as well. And like actually weirdly like really good in combat too, like the damage to
Yeah,
weapons with the volume that they're coming in. I love the place that they're living. Even I think like Berserkers very very good with Masters of Executions attached. Jackals have their own place as well. The demon engines like the Forge Fiend and the Mauler Fiend actually being viable options, dude. I'm like so stoked for that, and obviously the Land Raider too, right? So like in that sense, it's so cool to have like a full sandbox for a faction and just be like, right, what can I mess with today? And
yeah,
it's almost like decision paralysis for me. I'm just like, there's too many archetypes that I want to try, and then I try and like fit them all in one list, and it just doesn't work at all.
yeah.
So I'm just like, all right, I need to like slow down and like write multiple lists, and then say, okay, like let's play these one at a time and see which one you enjoy the most. So for that aspect of it, I'm like, that's pretty cool right now.
I do agree. I like with the internal balance regarding World Eaters specifically. I do think we obviously need some points tweaks to be more in line with the strengths of other factions.
Oh yeah,
I
this is
think
very much
between eight
internal
bound,
only.
yeah, 8 bound, exalted 8 bound, and Terminators. I feel again with no experience in 10th on the table, but I feel they're all pointed a little bit high. Maybe not the Terminators so much because I just need to see what they're going to run into. But with T5, 2 up, 4 up, 6 up for us, um, they are going to tank quite a lot of stuff. I just want to see how survivable they are.
Yeah,
Um, but
absolutely.
the 8 bounds are definitely over. They're just overcosted for the points per model.
The
Points
regular
per.
8 pound, I think they are. The exalted 8 pounds, I'm not so
I
sure.
think they're pushing it. Not as bad,
Yeah,
but because they some of their weapons now hit on threes and they are a 5 up in bomb. I don't know. I just feel like because those were key units for a lot of us over the last 3 4 months or whatever. Now, which is fine, nothing should be auto take, but we don't have many options. Like
this is it. Yeah.
it's that. But overall, like Angron's great, Land Raiders are great, Berserkers are decent enough, Jackals are
The
pretty
Khorne Lord
fun.
of Skulls, man.
Lord of Skulls, yeah, at
That is
420.
one pushed unit, if ever I've seen
Yes,
it.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting. So I suppose there is like some good bits. Like we don't want to obviously be all doom and gloom and try and put a positive spin on it. And like definitely, I echo a lot of what Jamie said. I'm quite happy with the direction that they're bringing the identity of the World Eaters. And I think with a potential range refresh at some point in the hopefully not too distant future,
yeah.
we could really cement a solid identity on the tabletop. So I'm excited for the potential of that. But I suppose getting back to the reality of the situation, it's great to talk about how nice the world leaders are and stuff. But I think like being completely honest with everyone, I'm kind of thinking about like taking my foot off the gas competitively, at least until things get sorted out. And there's a few reasons for that, namely the sort of experience that you would have at a tournament now, I think wouldn't necessarily be all that pleasant. And I don't think that's anything about like the people or anything, but like you are just going to run into armies that are going to absolutely wipe you off the board.
Plug and play
Um,
shit, yeah,
if you run into triple rate night, for example, any kind of space marine artillery gun line and stuff, look, things just are very imbalanced right now. The points don't make sense. Some of the abilities, the way they work, it doesn't make sense. So in that sense, I'm kind of thinking about being like, maybe I won't focus too much on competitive play right now. So in that sense, I'm like, well, how do I engage with this hobby? How do I get enjoyment out of it? So being someone who kind of like hobbies an awful lot, I'm going to sort of be focusing on a lot of painting for the next while. I have a significant backlog. those of you who are watching the streams will have seen that I'm doing a lot of my demons on stream, which is pretty hype, and I'm painting up like my reserve world eater stuff as well. So like working through the combat patrol and things like that, and that's very exciting and very fun to do. And I'm sure when things get back on the rails, which like inevitably they will sort it out, because to have the game this unhealthy for a protracted period of time is going to hurt their profit margin, and that's obviously very important for Games Workshop, regardless of how the players feel. So they will sort that out. But you know, for the time being, I'm kind of like, cool, I'll chill out. And when things are very good again, I'll have a nicely painted army. Maybe I'll have two. I'll have a full demons army that I can mess around with. So I would suggest, if you're kind of in that same boat, maybe look at your backlog and say, what if I actually just spend the next couple of months or however long it takes to balance things out, working through this backlog, so that when I actually come back to the tabletop, I can present everyone with this lovely painted army, and people are going to say like, hey, that's really cool. I haven't seen you in a while, but it's really nice to see that you've got this splendid army with whatever kind of vibe you've got going on. But obviously that doesn't work for everyone. So Jamie, like, how are you kind of coming at this? Like, what's your viewpoint? Are you going to
So
take some time off, or are you going to kind of double down?
I'm don't know. I may do both. I don't know how, but
Please
here's
develop on that. That's interesting.
so so by time off, I mean I may take time off from playing World Eaters in one aspect. This is something we've obviously discussed. I know, you know, with Jack and yourself, and Ron has been on me about trying another army. And it's not really been something I've ever been interested in. Like I did previously own Tau, never played them. I do have a small Astra Militarum Inquisition army that's halfway painted, which I've played a couple of times. But what I'm thinking of doing, and have been thinking for a few weeks, is just on TTS, picking a second army that's not a pure combat army. You know, maybe it'll be a Marine faction. I'm not going to pick something that's super good. I'm just going to pick something that's a different style of play, and maybe develop a sense for how the other side lives. Maybe.
Pick up some new skills doing that, you know,
Yeah,
new tricks and
exactly.
stuff, and new counter
And
abilities.
it helps, you know, learn another army's rules and stuff. So should I run into them? You know, I know the rules. That's one thing, because I don't think I'll ever play another army on the real table. Um, but it doesn't hurt to know something else. So that's something I'm thinking about. I haven't really looked into any other factions yet. But doubling down wise, I'm definitely going to be starting to get reps in. I fly home, depending. I think this video is dropping Saturday, the 24th. It should be day zero of
Day zero,
10th
baby, let's
edition.
go.
Yeah. So I'm flying home tomorrow, Sunday, and I'm hoping Monday evening, if not, probably not Sunday evening, but Monday evening to get a game in on TTS.
I'm sure
Um,
Don's like in the cage, you know,
oh
he's
yeah,
ready to go. Like
yeah.
he's
Oh, he's probably had about 60 games already.
minimum,
So,
minimum. He's cracked deck guard. He's about to win the ITC with deck guard in their current
yeah.
state.
um, but yeah, I hopefully start getting the games and getting the reps in, because I just haven't played a game in at least 2 months now. I just haven't played. Um, so I do want to start fine tuning my world eaters as well. I am going to do some more hobby. There's a few bits I want to paint. I want to start being able to replace my older berserkers with the newer berserkers. I just want to
Yeah.
get everything, at least most of my older berserkers, get everything in a uniform color scheme. Um, there's a few other units I may have to paint. Nothing groundbreaking. I probably want to get two Juggerlords. I've got Invocatus and one Juggerlord at the moment. Probably want another Juggerlord just to be prepared for a situation where I, you know,
You
want a
can run
second.
the four horsemen of the apocalypse. It is
Yes.
a possibility, which is kind of
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Actually, that's a really good idea for a color scheme set as
It
well.
is actually, yeah,
Yeah.
that's quite cool. Actually, yeah, I don't mind that idea.
I'm not the one to attempt that, but it is
Hmm.
a cool idea. Um, but yeah, I think the other thing I will advocate for, whether I do this or not, is something I know is close to your heart, Dara. Is the meme list, is the fun list, is the triple Lord of Skulls and Angron
It's
list.
good, man.
3,000 jackals list. It's
Yeah.
oops all tanks, which is kind of hard to run with world eaters, but you can do it. Is if you've got some models that haven't seen play in a long time, um, fucking throw them out there. Like get some cool stuff. Unfortunately, I mean, obviously you can still run like your scorpions and stuff in friendly games, but if we're talking about like you're sticking to the true kind of GT match play, higher levels of the game, which generally most people do. For everyone who says, "Oh, you can still play these models in Legends and stuff," it doesn't happen very often. Um, I think just to have some fun with the game is a great way to deal with it right now, especially if you're someone like us, World Eaters, and we've probably got at least a year for our true codex. We've got a limited model range, and we're looking at 3 to 6 months of a weird situation with, once Space Marines Codex hits, they're going to be even more busted than they are right now, quite frankly. And it's going to be bowing to our Space Marine overlords and then whatever other books come out shortly after. We're going to have, regardless of whether GW fixes power creep, the first 6 months of an edition with a lot of people on indexes, those books come out will just have native improvements that no one else has access to because there'll be new rules mechanics introduced and stuff. So we're going to have to deal with that no matter what. So I'd suggest just having fun. And if you've got some big chunky models, throw them on the table and have some fun with them. Like I think you said you were going to buy 3 Lords of Skulls and paint them all up, right,
I
Dara?
did,
That's
yeah, I
definitely
definitely
something
said
you're going
that.
to do.
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, I think it is a really good point, like to just mess around, like basically write a list that you're like, this seems really fun. I probably won't be able to legally run this list for very long.
Yeah.
9 Demon Prince list, looking at you.
Yes.
Like just do it. It's you're not going to have the chance to do it again. Playing the game in any sort of serious capacity right now seems like a thing that's probably bad for your mental. And so why not, if you've got a tournament, just bring a foot demon prince with 120 jackals, or 3 Lords of Skulls and Angron, or a list of just all berserkers all the time, or whatever you want to do. Like, I think taking the game in a serious capacity right now, unless you're training for the WTC or you're trying to win the ITC or something like that, I just think it's probably not a great idea, to be
Yeah.
honest, especially not for World Eaters. Um, it's sort of rewinded time to 8th edition, where we're actually quite far down, not by virtue of being bad, but there are some armies that are just so blatantly more powerful, and the points are so, kind of intrinsically imbalanced, that like there is a vast gulf between, we'll say, us and Craftworld Eldar. And I don't really know a scenario in which we can kind of overcome that. Which sort of reminds me of 8th edition, where we would run into some of these lists and it's just like, well, I can't fight this. And that's never really a great vibe. So if you're kind of someone who's like, I want to go out there and win those tournaments, I think it's fair to say, and this is no reflection of the people who play at these levels, but the top tables of a tournament right now and for the next few months are going to be very ugly if there isn't a significant change made to the game. Like, they are just going to be triple rate night. They are going to be artillery guard car parks or artillery marine car parks. They are going to be the Lion and a million Dark Angel Terminators. They are going to be Desolation Marines left, right, and center. It's going to be super ugly. World Eaters will not have an amazing time on those tables,
Yeah.
and that's just the raw truth of it. And again, we try to keep things positive on the channel, and I think we're coming at it in a reasonable enough manner. If you disagree, that's totally fair, but we are trying to frame this in a context where it's like, look, this is the reality of the situation. And I think if you are someone who's like, I want to go and I want to win my local GT, but there is going to be, say, a selection of very strong Eldar players there that have the access to D weaponry, rate knights, anything else like that that's in the book. I'm sure it's there's going to be so much crack stuff coming out of there. Like, you just have to be aware that, like, if you run into one of those armies, the disadvantage, regardless of player skill, is significant,
Mm-hmm.
because of points and abilities. And I just think it's a good opportunity to mess around. As you say, don't take the game seriously. And yeah, see what happens. Maybe you rock up to a tournament with three Lords of Skulls and Angron, and you go first, and you gun the shit out of those Wraith Knights, and Angron makes a first turn charge, and you win the game. It could happen. Will it happen if you do
Definitely
8-band
could.
rush? Probably not. So I'd say go for it. Go wild. Make Jack have to look at a list on Whack Weekly, please, and make him cry. I want everyone who goes to these events to hurt Jack. You
There is
know?
our 6 month goal, Dara, right there. For the next 6 months, we want Red Path viewers to attend events and do well. We want to see Jack break down live on camera.
I'm
We
going to do
want
it live in
we want the
person as I
cheers.
fight on the top tables at our first event in August, maintaining eye contact with him throughout the game as I body slam my Eldar opponent with my Jackal meme rush list.
You heard it here first, folks.
You sure did. You sure did. But
I
yeah,
just want to I just want to add something quickly there,
do yeah, of
based on the
course.
point you brought up. We do generally try to maintain a positive composure here at the Red Path. Try and look things in the best way possible. However, that doesn't mean we won't accept the realities. We've been given a lot of guff in the past for being happy with something that GW has done. For instance, a lot of our comments on YouTube are like, "What you guys are just chilling," or what have you. We don't really care about GW past the fact that they are in charge of the game we love. Um, Sometimes they do things that we agree with and are positive for the community as a whole, and sometimes, and it feels like a lot of the time, they fuck up. At the moment, I would say 10th edition is under the list of GW done fucked up. They may fix that. In a week's time, in a month's time, this kind of like our feelings towards 10th edition overall,
Could be completely different. By the time this video comes out, who
yeah,
knows? Like Debt
can
Watch
be
got
obsolete.
changed very, very quickly, which I
Yeah,
think is a positive takeaway in terms of
yes,
like
yeah.
recognizing a
There's
problem.
silver linings.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
definitely GW may turn around and show us this kind of very quick reaction time. But we will call GW out for as whatever range our voice has. We will be honest about our feelings. In this case, we're not a big fan of the way things are. Hopefully, they're going to fix it. But yeah, I
yeah.
just wanted to point that out.
I think it's totally fair, and like on that note, like just to echo what Jamie said, like we do try to put a positive spin on things in general, just to keep the vibe good, and that's what it's all about. And it's about having fun at the end of the day. And I think the honest takeaway from this is right now, looking at 10th edition, that's not a recipe for fun for me and for Jamie as well. Hopefully that will change. Obviously, I still love the game, and I'm going to engage with it in a different capacity than what I was doing, we'll say, up to Warhammer Fest, which was like I was playing the game, I was really enjoying it competitively, and that was brilliant. Hopefully that will return. I'm going to enjoy the game hobbying away. I'm going to read my Realm of Chaos books, things like that. I will still be engaging. We're still going to be making content. That's
Oh, of course,
another
yeah.
really important thing as well. This isn't us saying like, "Hey, we're taking a break from whatever." We're going to like splurge videos out left, right, and center as we always do. That's not going to change, and we'll have the hottest of hot takes as things develop. But yeah, I think it's like fair to say that we're just trying to give our like honest opinion here on this, and as a channel, as like a group, myself, Jack, and Jamie, right now, 10th isn't looking amazing. That doesn't mean it can't be fixed. There are actually fundamentally reasonably easy changes that need to be made in order for these things to be fixed. It might take a little while, it might take a month or two to get everything to where it should be, but it will happen. I mean, at the end of the day, the edition will be 4 to 5 years long. So if it's imbalanced for a couple of months for the sake of balance in the long term, that's okay with me.
Yeah.
Going forward, though, we'll try and keep the vibe good. We're gonna try and do what we can. But yeah, I think it should be okay. I reckon it should be
Yeah, I think it
okay.
will be. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it will be too. I think it will be too. It'll take a little while, but it'll get worked out. And one way or another, we'll find a way to make World Eaters work in the maelstrom of it all. But yeah, I think on that note, we might start closing this one out. Jamie, is there anything you want to say before we finish this one up?
No, I will say I know a lot of people, long time viewers, have known one of my favorite things about the World Eaters and 40k is janky bullshit. And as Dara will have known, anyone in the Discord will know, I've been trying my hardest to find janky bullshit. And I am compiling a list of my favorite bits of jank, but I will say I was very disappointed because I thought this isn't a spoiler or anything. I thought I had got it so I could put a Juggerlord inside a Land Raider. I was this close to it, Down. A Juggerlord attached to 8 bound inside a Land Raider. I thought I'd broken the game wide open. I thought that's it. I've done it. I'm going to win the LGT with this super surprise list. It didn't happen. But I just want everyone to know, because I know some of a lot of people kind of always get a very positive reception when I put out these stupid bullshit videos where it's like, here's how the rules don't really work, but you can do it anyway. I am trying. We've got a new edition for me to break, and I will find something in there which is spicy and salacious and kind of sexy as well. But yeah, I just wanted to put that in there. The upright
Incredible.
drill
Yeah.
will return even if it can't legally be played.
We'll find a way. We'll find a way. But yeah, look, that's been our first impressions on 10th. In the following week, we'll probably have a little bit of content coming out about our feedback having actually played some games. I know I'll be hitting the table this weekend against a couple of my buddies. I'm really looking forward to that. Just seeing how it kind of all feels. Very, very exciting. As always, we'll be streaming on Twitch. We'll have stuff up on Spotify, various podcasts there. We do have a little bit of announcement coming next week in terms of Patreon and stuff like that, so keep an eye out for that too. And yeah, overall, the content train isn't going anywhere. World Eaters are still very, very hype, and we're still all here to kill, maim, and burn. So until the next one, folks, until the next one, I've been Dara. This has been Jamie. Thank you all so much for watching. All the support and stuff is down in the comments below. Let us know what you're thinking about 10th edition. Let us know if you think we're all very, very stupid about our thoughts and impressions. And if you've been playing the game, tell us. We want to hear these stories. Are we talking absolute nonsense? Who knows? But until the next one, folks, stay healthy, stay safe, and kill, maim, burn.